or for remote attendees to mute themselves when not speaking to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking. And if a participant wishes to speak, or if they could activate their respective request to speak function or use the raise hand function if joining the meeting remotely. So that is those for now. We can move on to the agenda formally, and the agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. I have one apology for absence. That's from Councillor Gwyn John, who is indisposed today, and I hope is soon back in the peak of health. So just for Councillor John today. Agenda item 2 is minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of March 2024. And if I can take those as a true reflection of the meeting.
And I'll second those.
Thank you. And agenda item 3 is to receive declarations of interest and the nature of such interests, if there are any, obviously. And I haven't been informed of any. Have we been notified?
No, there are no declarations of interest for this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
And there are no hands up, so no, that's straightforward. So we can move on to references, and we have a number of references today. Some single references that we'll take, and others we'll probably take with later agenda items. I'll indicate those as we work through. The first reference, agenda item 4, is from Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee on the 8th of February, and that's related to the Annual Equality Monitoring Report 2022-23. And as this was Ruba's report, Ruba will be taking this item.
Thank you, Liz. And thank the Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee for their comments. I mean, as usual, there was a good discussion about this, and points raised were addressed by officers. Not all of them were sort of pertinent to the monitoring report, the equality monitoring report. But really, there was a good discussion, Liz, and I'm really bringing this for us to note the comments.
Super. So you're moving, we note, and I will second that. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is another reference for Ruba. This is the review of the Vale Glamorgan Council Strategic Equality Objectives for 2024-25, and this has also come to us from the Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee on the 8th of February. Back to you, Ruba.
Yes, Liz, and so thank the Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee again. There was again another good discussion on this. You'll recall, Liz, that I brought this to Cabinet the week before, and the discussion was quite robust, and the comments again are useful and will be noted. And again, some of the comments were addressed by the officers at the meeting. But I'm bringing the report for us to note those comments.
Super. I'm happy to second that we note, and I don't see any dissent in the room or online, so that's agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 6 is a reference from Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee on the 12th of March, and that's related to the highway maintenance inspection regime. And as this was Mark's report originally, I'll hand over to Mark for the reference.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, and we had a very good report, and can I thank the members of the Scrutiny Committee, the Environment and Regeneration. And I'll just summarise briefly what was said. The Neighbourhood Manager's Highway Maintenance presented changes to the highway condition inspection regime to Cabinet, which replacing outdated manuals. There was concerns expressed at the meeting over costs, cyclist safety, and neighbourhood practices were addressed by officers. Limited resources for calls were cited. There were over 600 identified defects awaiting attention. A gully cleaning operation operates every 12 to 15 months. The committee suggested improving the usability of the Contact One Vale app for reporting defects, if we recommend to Cabinet consider enhancing the online reporting process for carriage defects. I know that its work is very much ongoing with our digitalisation programme, and I move that we note the reference.
Thanks, Mark, and happy to second that we note everyone's in agreement, so that's fine, that's passed. So moving on to agenda item 7, and that's a reference from Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee on the 12th of March related to the annual delivery plan monitoring report, quarter 3 performance 2023-24. It was an in-depth discussion on that. Most of the conversation was around externally funded projects that we've got in relation to the timescales for the Making Waves project. That's the one levelling up sort of set of funding that we've got, and there will be updates on that in the near future. Also, in terms of the council's green infrastructure plan, and that with regard to that, an initial draft's been produced. And consultation on that will be carried out over the summer months. There was also a query over the town boards, the town board actually it is, that's being formed as a result of the UK government's long-term plan for towns funding, and it was raised about the limited role for elected members in the process. I think it's worth saying that the composition of the boards is actually determined by UK government, and it is designed in such a way that people of the town from various areas, whether that be businesses, community groups, so on and so forth, are represented. So, that is something for UK government, and they were very clear on that when we met with them. But there will be updates very soon as that moves forward. So I think that on that note, that we will take on board those comments, and I think that it's just for us really to note the comments from Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee. So I'd move.
And I'll second that.
Super. Then agenda item. Just thinking I should have taken that with that. Agenda items 8 and 9, I will take with agenda item 12, which is the report on service plans and target setting, because there's a section in that to do with scrutiny feedback. So if Cabinet's happy, I will deal with those later in the agenda. Okay, everyone's happy with that. Then we will move on to, let's have a look, agenda item 10, which is the report of the corporate parenting panel on the 8th of January 2024. So I will hand over to Eddie, who is chair of that panel.
Thank you, Leader. As you can see from the minutes, it was quite an interesting meeting because it covered quite a few areas. In particular, there was a presentation by the Child and Disability team that are dealing with children within the Vale, from ranges of 0 to 8 and up to 18. And we've got 193 children that they're dealing with. And the team's been established since 2002, and we've given some really interesting case studies on how we as an authority deal with them, including the other agencies that we utilise to provide the benefits to the children that we've got. You'll see from the reports that also there was a case study that, sorry, I've already mentioned that, the case study, but we also dealt with the draft strategy, which is later on in this cabinet meeting, so I won't go into detail with that. That was discussed. And also the transgender toolkit is something which was brought to the various scrutiny committees and alongside with this panel. and so that was part of this meeting, and I'd just move note that as a recording of that panel that it continues to look after and continues to monitor and check what's going on with the corporate parenting side of the Vale Council. Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie. Corporate parenting, a crucially important function that we that we deliver. Thanks for that. You've noted or moved we note, and I'm happy to second. And everyone else is content on that, so that's agreed. Moving on to agenda item 11, that's the annual development plan monitoring report, Q3 performance. We've just dealt with the reference for this, which I should have dealt with it, but we'll include that anyway. If I can get my monitor to work. So this actually relates. I mean, we keep talking about we have a corporate plan, we have an annual delivery plan, and the annual delivery plan is monitored on a quarterly basis. This is the quarterly report for the 2023-24 annual delivery plan. So it's how we've performed up to Christmas of 2023 so far. There was a presentation appended at Appendix A, and that provides a summary of progress against the annual delivery plan commitments. And Appendix B to the report actually also provided progress against the Council's annual delivery plan commitments for the same period as aligned to the remit of the 5 scrutiny committees. So when this went to scrutiny committees, they focused on their own specific areas. All 5 scrutiny committees have reviewed Q3 performance reports between the 4th and the 20th of March. Healthy Living and Social Care and Homes and Safe Communities scrutiny committees noted the Q3 progress. There were some specific comments from Learning and Culture and Economic Regeneration and Corporate Performance and Resources scrutiny, and they're detailed later in the report, and I'll go through those shortly. So if you look at paragraph 2.7 onwards, as I said, the Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee noted the reports, as did the Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committees. The Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee noted it, but also commented that they would appreciate a report on the usage of libraries and initiatives that are being undertaken in libraries, and for that to be presented to a future meeting. I know that when we've done that previously, it's always been really informative and very well received, because people are normally amazed at exactly what goes on in our library. So that's for the Scrutiny Committee to agree with our democratic officers. The Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee, as I mentioned when I took the reference, they were concerned about the constraints imposed by UK government in terms of the role of ward members on town boards. But as I said, that is for UK government. We will continue to talk to them about the makeup and making sure it fits the needs of Barry, but that was for UK government. The Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny, while noting the report, one of the things that they came up with was that the committee raised concerns about the Vale Glamorgan Council's increasing reliance on external funding for core aims and critical challenges, including non-statutory areas and services. I think that is a challenge, and I think the word that comes in there is for non-statutory services. Sometimes we haven't been able to meet our full aspirations for our statutory services in light of the financial challenges that we face, but certainly for non-statutory areas we are having to be increasingly innovative in terms of how we access funding and how we stitch together sources of funding. And as I mentioned earlier this week, the Knapp Skate Park, we managed to bring together 5 different funding groups. When we're looking at the Colcut and Buttrell proposals, we will be looking at for multiple sources of funding for that as well. It's not as straightforward as we want to do something, we have the money. I think that's a given these days. Committee suggested tying in with the work currently being undertaken by the committee's task and finish group around procurement strategy. I think I'm really looking forward to that work being completed, because I think it's going to be very, very important in how we go forward. They were pleased about the reintroduction of the RAG rating, the red, amber, green rating for performance. I think that's good. And they also asked for a report to be provided concerning recruitment and retention of staff at the council, including staff in local schools. And again, I think that's a really worthwhile one, and not so much. We can talk about recruitment and retention, but I think it's also very important to talk about and what are we doing about it, because there are some very constructive plans afoot in terms of how we are going to challenge that. The committee also raised concerns around the council's increasing reliance on external funding for core aims and critical challenge. Actually, that's been in twice, so we can take out that last bullet point. I've just dealt with that. So some very good discussion at that scrutiny committee, all of which I think we should note. And the recommendations before us today is that Cabinet considers Q3 performance results and endorses the progress towards achieving the annual delivery plan 2023-24 commitments as aligned to the Council's corporate plan wellbeing objectives. And secondly, that Cabinet considers the views and recommendations of scrutiny committees in relation to Q3 performance and approve identified remedial actions as the basis to address areas underperformance and to tackle the key challenges identified. And I would move.
And I'll second that, Leader.
Thank you. And everyone, silence in the gallery, so that's agreed. Yeah. It's all right, I'm just moving on to agenda item 12. Now, this is where I've got to juggle 2 references and the report. So, seeing as I'm working on a laptop, I shall go back and say that. Hang on. The reference in relation to the introduction. So we were talking about annual delivery plan just now, and in effect we start off with a corporate plan, we distill that down into an annual delivery plan, and from the agreement of that annual delivery plan, each service area actually develops its own service plan and performance targets to deliver the annual delivery plan. So in that way, there is a golden thread that all builds back up to the corporate plan. So the report, agenda item 12, actually is an overview of the service plans and performance targets to deliver the annual delivery plan for next year, 2024-25. And through delivering the annual delivery plan, it will help us to meet the Council's statutory obligations under the Local Government Elections Wales Act 2021 and also the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015. So as previously mentioned, this report has been to scrutiny committees for their view. And in terms of their views, let's have a quick look. The Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee, they discussed it on the 4th of March, and they noted and endorsed the report, and that was Appendix A and Appendix B. The Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee on the 5th of March, they also endorsed the report along with Appendix A and B. Environment and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee, they endorsed Appendix A and also Appendix B. They also asked that Cabinet gives consideration to scrutiny chairs and vice chairs meeting in order to consider how each committee takes forward and supports the new performance reporting framework. I think that's an eminently good idea. I think that the perfect route for that would be the scrutiny chairs and vice chairs committee, where they could discuss this together at length. So I would suggest that we pass that over to that committee for attention. The Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee, they endorsed Appendix A and B, and they also asked that Cabinet be informed going forward of the Scrutiny Committee's requests to receive information for consideration relating to cultural aspects and sustainable travel options being considered in relation to schools. This is a bit of a challenge because the service plans are separated into the 5 remits of scrutiny committees, so that each committee will lead on particular areas. There's absolutely nothing to stop members attending committees of which they are not members and contributing into that discussion, because the feedback in terms of service plans should come from the committee that is a lead for that. So again, I think that I can recognise why the scrutiny committee would be asking that, and I would again would ask that be referred over to the scrutiny chairs and vice chairs for them to think about how such a discussion would be coordinated so that it didn't cause confusion and we got one train of feedback coming through from scrutiny. Does that make sense? Yeah, hopefully. Then we have that Corporate Performance and Resources Scrutiny Committee, they have endorsed Appendix A, they've also endorsed Appendix B. They ask that consideration be given to ensure that performance indicators around corporate complaints remain sufficiently robust. That's actually a conversation I've been having with the chair of Governance and Audit. So I think that's something that's ongoing and that we can work on. That we include performance indicators in relation to how many residents were actively engaging with the council's communication team. I think that's a very relevant topic at the moment, and I'm sure that it will be relevant when we discuss the last agenda item of today. That we also look at strengthening and greater quantifying performance indicators around promoting equality and diversity within the Vale of Glamorgan. I think we would agree with that, as well as ensuring that those indicators concerning decarbonisation were robust and tied in with the council's carbon management plan. And I think we would reflect that back to the team that are developing and monitoring that management plan. To ensure that wider diversity and protected characteristics, e.g. disability, were considered and duly represented. And I think that would be part of our equality work. And the importance of having both qualitative and quantitative performance indicators in order to properly analyse the success of the relevant council measures. Yes, I think in terms of performance, that is something that we're working to. And minimising the use of jargon, I think that is an eminently sensible suggestion, and again, something that we are working towards. And certainly in terms of our future communications, yes, Also to ensure that wider environmental targets and indicators were considered, and we continue to work towards that. So I think that those have been, we would agree with those, and that we will make sure that they are communicated to the relevant committees or officers to take those forward. So if I can get back to start, the recommendations that we have today are that Cabinet reviews and approves the planned service activities for 2024-25 as contained in Service Plans Appendix A. Cabinet reviews and approves the proposed measures and service performance targets aligned to Corporate Plan Performance Measures Framework for 2024-25, and that's at Appendix B. And I suppose we ought to put in at 3, and that we endorse the comments of the scrutiny committees, and we'll pass them on to the relevant or the appropriate destinations. So I would move that.
And I'll second those recommendations.
Super. Yeah. And so that agenda item 13, if I can cover that up. This is the renewal of the Vale of Glamorgan Broadcasting Community Interest Company deed of grant, and this actually is when we talk about the Vale of Glamorgan Broadcasting Community Interest Company, most of us know it as Bro Radio, and we have supported Bro back from previous administration, quite a long way back in 2009, and in terms of our approach to funding core community organisations, the existing funding arrangement is being proposed to be extended for a further 5 years to March 2029. I think it's really constructive to have such a skilled and professional organisation locally, so that if there is local community news that needs to be shared, or volunteering opportunities, or upskilling local people, they do some absolutely fabulous work. Quite a few of the young journalist students or journalism students that have worked with Bro Radio, I quite often see cropping up on local BBC radio stations, etc. And preparing some excellent work. It's super to keep up with them and their progress, and it's because they've had such a good grounding in digital media and in journalism through volunteering with Bro that has been so successful. They also now spread right across the Vale. They continue to have a base in Llantwit Major as well, so that in terms of Western Vale, and they very much support local community events as well. So there is an annual report appended to this report, which is well worth a read, and the images have got some well-known local figures there as well. So very well worth a read. So this is quite a short report. So I think there's 4 recommendations before us, and that is, firstly, that it's recommended that Cabinet note the contents of this report. Secondly, that it's recommended that Cabinet approves the renewal of the deed of grant between the Vale of Glamorgan Council and the Vale of Glamorgan Broadcasting Community Interest Company for a further 5-year period from the 31st of July 2024 to 31st of March 2029, with a continuation of the allocation of £24,000 per annum. Thirdly, it's recommended that Cabinet delegates authority to the Monitoring Officer, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, in consultation with the Executive Leader and Head of Finance, Section 151 Officer, to prepare and execute the deed of grant and related payment processes. And finally, it's recommended that Cabinet receives an annual update on the work of Bro Radio over the term of funding, and I would move.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Everyone in agreement, so that's passed. Super. The next report, agenda item 14, is a proposal to grant freemen and free women status to the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, or the RNLI. I'm absolutely delighted to bring this report. I mentioned it in full council recently, the intention to do that, and in this year, which is their 200th anniversary, we thought that it was proper that they were recognised. Normally, we see sort of freedom of the council, of the county, awarded to organisations, but actually that's for service organisations. So the way of recognising the contribution of the organisation is through this process to make them honorary free men or honorary free women of the Vale of Glamorgan. I think it's worth noting, and if you look at the executive summary on the second paragraph, these awards should be made on merit, such as achievement or exceptional service. And I don't think that in any way we could argue other than the RNLI in the Vale of Glamorgan have provided exceptional service to their communities. They're already planning a festival of the sea at Barry Island in June, and so if this is agreed and if it goes to full council and is passed by a 2/3 majority, it would be proposed to award it formally during that festival. We talked about having a long history in the Vale of Glamorgan, and actually the Penarth Lifeboat Station was originally opened in 1861, before being closed in 1905 and services transferred to other areas. But the station actually reopened in 1980 in its new building on the Esplanade, and it has been amazingly active ever since. The Barry Dock Lifeboat Station was established in 1901 and has operated from the docks in Barry ever since. I believe they've just got a new boat, haven't they? So, they have, which is great. And there was actually a station in Atlantic College, which opened in 1963, and that was withdrawn in 2013. But they had in the mid 2010s there was a programme of small rigid hulled inflatable powerboat building, and operator training was introduced for students. And if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to research this, that there is word that the what's called a rib was actually invented at Atlantic College. So we'll have to get more information on that. From a council perspective, the work of the RNLI in the Vale actually is a demonstration of the power, significance and impact of volunteering in its wider sense. And nowhere is this more critical than when it comes to saving lives on the Vale of Glamorgan coast. Not only do we have the lifeboat stations, actually the RNLI support the council as lifeguards in coastal locations. They also have been hugely supportive in terms of providing mental health support. Those who walk along Penarth Esplanade will see their bench by their station. And that was done as a recognition of need. And they're always there to stand up and support their community. Only recently, when there was fundraising, it related to mental health support that started from Penarth Pier, they were there to cheer the runners off. So my thanks to them. So as I said, if we agree this today, it will go to full council, and hopefully will be agreed there, and look forward to seeing them in June on Barry Island. So we've got two recommendations today, and that's that Cabinet recommends to full council that pursuant to their powers under section 2495 of the Local Government Act 1972, the council confer upon the members of the RNLI in the Vale of Glamorgan the title of Honorary Freemen and Freewomen of the County Borough in recognition of the distinguished service history within the Vale of Glamorgan. And secondly, that the Chief Executive be granted delegated authority in consultation with the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources to ensure this honour is commemorated during the planned Festival of the Sea event scheduled to take place at Barry Island on the 1st and 2nd of June 2024. And I am delighted to move. Who's got, Ruba, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Liz. I was just going to come in that I would wholeheartedly support this and second this. As a keen sea swimmer myself, this really demonstrates, as you've already mentioned, the power of volunteering and the expertise that brings, but also the partnership working with the council, which supports us in all our resorts. So I'd wholeheartedly support this.
Thank you. And Bronwyn, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, just to say I'm absolutely delighted to help support this today and really look forward to seeing this come to full council, when I'm sure there will be unanimous support for this, and it will be really exciting to see this award and recognition presented at the beginning of June at what will be a fantastic festival, as I'm sure it will be.
Will be.
Hopefully not raining.
Standing room only, I hope.
Yeah.
Excellent. So thank you all. And so we've got, I've moved it. We've got a seconder. People are nodding frantically in the chamber. So yes, that's agreed. Thank you all. And then we move on to agenda item 15. This is a housekeeping report where we report the use of the Chief Executive's emergency powers. And this is from the 25th of January 2024. A whole range of things. These are things that we've already agreed in part, and so we have to take steps to move them on. So it's things such as modular classrooms for Dinas Powys Primary School, roof repairs, leisure centre, etc. Things to do with our school building programme. The land disposal related to the new extra care facility in Penarth, recycling, things like recycling banks and litter bins. Interestingly, the next step in the Barry Western Gateway project, where that's moving forward in terms of, that's going to be about £22 million project. So we'll hope to see some planning applications and things by the end of the year. So a whole range of things to dip in on that. And the recommendation for that is just that the use of the Chief Executive's emergency powers be noted. So I'd move.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Everyone's all right. So agenda item 16, I can be quiet now. This is the corporate strategy for children who need care and support 2024 to 28. So that's over to Eddie. Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you, Lida. This is a comprehensive report about the strategy and the action plan for looked after children, for children in the Vale, so who need care and support. You'll notice that the strategy itself is Appendix 1. This was first endorsed by Cabinet in October 2016, and the initial 3-year strategy marked a significant change in recognising responsibilities of the whole council, enabling children in need and care and support to receive the right help at the right time and to improve their well-being and protect them from harm, and also in aligning the roles of multiple directorates in delivering the associated actions, so it's not just for one particular area of the council. And the second strategy was built on these foundations and positively reflected the cross-sector relationships within the action plan. The third strategy continues this legacy, having been developed in partnership with our external partners in health, the third sector, and through engagement with children and young people and their families and carers. The strategy identifies how utilising an integrated model of services, the needs of children, young people and their families will be met, and within the resources available to the Council and its partners during the period 24 to 28. You'll notice through the report it gives some detail on the background for what the report's about. That obviously there's some legislation that's required, and you'll see that it indicates the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, where it says that we're trying to provide support to those who need care and support as early as possible, help them to use the strengths within the families and resources and in the communities to provide that help and support, but also intervene at a stage which prevents their needs becoming critical. That's a key message, because often there's a temptation, as we know, particularly in the budget setting in the last year or so, we've had to look at where the finances is heading, but we're still trying, as part of this strategy and the action plan, to make sure that we do that early intervention, and that's what this is focused on. The Additional Learning Needs and Education Tribunal Wales Act 2018 placed an emphasis on meeting the needs of learners from 0 to 25 years, but it also emphasised the increase in participation of children and young people and the transition in workforce development. And there's some specific arrangements regarding the children who are looked after to ensure their education needs are coordinated effectively as well. And you'll see at 1.3 that this includes a requirement to appoint a looked after children coordinator and to integrate the personal education plans and individual development plans in order for that holistic approach to address those additional learning needs. In 1.4, he talks about the Healthier Wales, and it's prevention of not only the physical but mental. He talks about focusing on health, well-being, and preventing physical and mental illness, and that's a key part as one of our partners with the health boards, and this aligns with that strategy as well. You'll also look for the key considerations. It's definitely, we can't achieve what we need to do without working in partnership, but in particular, working with the families themselves. We've got the Families First at Device Line, Families First, and without that provision, we just know that we'd end up people not being signposted as early as possible or getting additional support. It would be further along on the journey, or the child's journey, and certainly we need to make sure that we continue doing what we're doing. So that will require to ensure that we focus on the families at that early point. You'll notice in 2.2 it talks about this strategy, talks about the level of care and placement and what we want to provide and commission for our children who are looked after. And clearly, as I said earlier, the finances are a challenge, and some of the places where we look after our children commission the high costs, but nevertheless, it's something we're still determined to continue with. And you can see through the report that we'll continue to do that to make sure we support the children as much as we can. You'll notice also in the back of on the appendix there, the action plan, and it's more specific. Often when we talk about strategy, it's overall, and we talk about how partnership working and everything else, families and that, but the action plan gives us that detail on what activities we're actually going to do. It is recognised that it's that working together. It's important that we're working with families to reduce the dependence as well, wherever possible, and to continue that focus on prevention, and also to use the strengths within families and the communities, and the services that can be provided alongside the third sector. It's quite important that it's just not one single answer to this, and it's not just for the local council, but this authority to work that through. And in producing the strategy, having passed it through our partners and our external partners in particular, we've been able to align our resources and focus on particular areas which we know we need to do. Let's see, what else is there? It's important to recognise that this strategy it's for children in particular, how we're supporting them, and they've been engaged with it as well. And that you see in the Appendix 2, there's an easy read that sort of highlights that, which children, young people were part of as a formulation of that as well. So let me see. Just going down to the final bit, so that strategy on a page, as I just said, that's there. So I always think that something like this document is quite a major piece of work, and I don't give it enough time, but it's been through all the scrutinies. They've supported it. The families and the children who've it's been with alongside developed this. It's support. So I'm keen to demonstrate that it has been through quite a few people. It meets the needs, and for the next 4 years, particularly, that this will be a working document which we can engage with. So the recommendation then is that Cabinet notes progress made in developing the new 4-year corporate strategy and action plan for children who need care and support, and that the corporate strategy and action plan for children who need care and support 24-28 being endorsed. And I can see Rhiannon's come on screen, because there is a key element that she'll probably add to this, as in partnership, as not just sub-services, it's education as well. Rhiannon.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to make the point that, of course, in a world of joined up thinking, this is so important, because you are looking at the basic building blocks of what will allow children to go on and achieve in education. I mean, the earlier the intervention, the better. There's very recent research, isn't there, showing that children who have benefited from Sure Start agencies in England have done better in their GCSE results. They've been able to demonstrate there is a link between those early interventions and the improvement of a child's life chances, regardless of whether we're talking about mental health, physical health, adverse childhood experiences, etc. All of these factors that influence that child's educational achievement, how well that family continues to do, how well that family can hang together. And obviously, any child doing better in education than otherwise expected is going to have a better chance in life. So I think strategies like this are really important. I mean, for lots of people, I think they think they're documents that sit on the shelf. But for people like us who are involved with children and young families every day, they are living, working documents, and they're so important. These are the parts of local government that people simply don't see. They want to talk about bins, and we're talking about the very essence of improving our society as a whole, starting with very small steps. So I'm pleased to second your recommendations and to support the strategy.
Thank you. Thank you, Lida.
Well, thanks both. This is a really important document. I think what I would like to say on this document is it is so clear that this document is written specifically with children and young people in mind, rather than being something that comes at it from the perspective of the organisations. It comes at it from the perspective of the children. So please, Eddie and Rhiannon, for those that are involved, pass on our thanks to the teams that have pulled this together, and also thank you both for your leadership and guidance in this as well. It's already been seconded, so everyone here is in agreement, so that is passed. Thank you. And then moving on to agenda item 17. With what I feel will prove to be quite a step change, hopefully, in the way in which we work going forward. This is about a survey that many Vale residents will have contributed to. It's Let's Talk About Life in the Vale, and it's the survey report and further engagement. And so that's over to Ruba. Thanks, Ruba.
Thank you, Liz. I'm very happy to bring this report to Cabinet. Let's talk about Life in the Vale with a survey exercise run in partnership with Data Cymru to understand residents' experience of life in the Vale of Glamorgan and to identify their priorities to inform our future service delivery. It was a bilingual survey which was conducted using an online survey tool called Smart Survey, and it was hosted by Data Cymru. And it went out between the 22nd of August and the 18th of December last year. And the result report, Chair, is attached to Appendix A to the Cabinet report. There were about 4,009 responses. Well, that's an exact number, in fact. So 4,009 responses to the survey. And Data Cymru considered the sample to be very robust. And the overall margin for error is about 1.6%. And this is also considered to be very good in statistical terms. The survey was primarily conducted online, as I've mentioned earlier. And so we will conduct further engagement with some groups who we feel weren't well represented in the sample, for example, young people. And that work is already underway. The survey covered a wide range of topics, and the questions were separated into 11 themes, and these included public service priorities, cost of living, climate change, volunteering and travel. Now, the results show people generally happy with the Vale as a place to live. 60% of respondents stated they were either very or fairly satisfied with the Vale of Glamorgan as a place to live, and 80% would recommend the Vale of Glamorgan as a place to live. The results also show that the council's priorities are broadly in line with those of residents. So, for example, 78% of respondents stated that they were either very or fairly concerned with the cost of living crisis. 68%, for example, were either very or fairly concerned with the climate emergency, and 65% are either very or fairly concerned with the nature emergency. And furthermore, 73% of respondents are also very or fairly concerned about services and support for older people, with 61% very or fairly concerned about services and support for young people. And all these are, as we all know, all these are areas of priority for the council, and they're reflected in our annual delivery plan and budget strategy. Being able to easily access care and healthcare services when my family or I need them, live in a neighbourhood that is clean and tidy, and buy or rent good quality homes were rated by respondents as top priorities. And again, this is in line with the council's plans. However, and there has to be a however, the results also show that there is much more work to be done in how we explain our work and engage residents in decision making. More respondents stated they strongly or slightly disagreed than agreed with statements that the services provided by the Vale of Glamorgan Council are of high quality. So that was about 45%. And also the council acts in the interests of residents, and that was around 51%, and that the council takes residents' views in town when making a decision, and that was around 60%. Clearly, these are the areas where we must now focus our attention. Public participation has been an established priority for our council for the last 2 years. In our latest annual delivery plan, we identified the need to continue to deliver our public participation strategy, which also includes, of course, the use of placemaking to improve how we involve, communicate and consult with people and ensure citizens have the opportunity to have their voice heard. So the results of the Let's Talk survey really bring into focus how important this work is. Clearly, there is more that needs to be done to communicate how and why we take decisions to residents. And this is about how we talk with our communities and how we explain decisions and how we hear the voices from all parts of our communities. In particular, need, in my view, we need to be clear about what the council is and isn't able to do, especially when decisions we have to take don't reflect feedback we've sought on them. And, and as we know, this can, when we've been setting the budget, this can be for very important reasons. Our recent experience in setting our budget and priorities for the year ahead tells us that we still need to do more to explain how exactly these financial constraints, legislative requirements and increasing demand for our services have a knock-on effect on our ability to continue to deliver things that residents are used to and have come to expect. And we're not alone in this challenge. We're welcoming the opportunity to work with others to raise the profile of what local authorities have to do, and have had discussions about what matters most to residents across Wales. We also need to continue to build on the relationships we have with our community groups to get our messages to the people who want to improve their community, have an interest in what we do, and don't currently feel that they get involved in our services or help shape our decisions. And our reshaping programme highlights this a key opportunity to empower our communities and, importantly, in my view, to protect services and facilities that matter most to the people in the Vale. And the results in this report show that the actions that we have identified in our public participation strategy are the right ones, but that we also need to be delivering on those more quickly. So, Chair, I'll move to my recommendations, and there is an additional recommendation, a fifth recommendation, which I'll discuss at the end. But the recommendations are that the Cabinet note the results of the survey, detailing the experiences and priorities of the Vale of Glamorgan residents to inform future service delivery and feed into strategic planning, including the Council's new corporate plan, reshaping programme and medium-term financial plans. And it's really important that I feel that residents hear this, that this is more than just an exercise. We really do want to hear what our residents are saying to inform our policies and our plans going forward. And and we heard Rhiannon and Eddie's corporate strategy that went before this, how important it is to listen and to work in partnership with our residents and the people that matter to this most. The second recommendation is that this report be referred to Corporate Resources Scrutiny Committee for its consideration, and that any views expressed there be referred back to Cabinet. Thirdly, that this report be referred to the Voluntary Sector Joint Liaison Committee as part of the committee's work on strengthening communities, and the theme of reshaping the theme of reshaping programme, and any views there also be referred back to Cabinet. And fourth, that this report be shared by email, but also in person with members of the Public Services Board, Equalities Consultative Forum, and the Council's own diversity network for their information, with all these links being fed back into the review of our participation strategy, which leads me, Chair, to the additional fifth recommendation, which is that the Council's existing public participation strategy be reviewed, its actions updated and reprioritised based on the survey results from Let's Talk, and all progress to date be reported to Cabinet before the summer recess and incorporated into our annual self-assessment report. So I would remove those recommendations, Chair.
Am I on? Yes, great, I'm here. No, I think that's super, and I think that hopefully we'll hear a lot more about this work as we go forward. That it's encouraging to see that the outcomes of this survey chime with our budget decisions, and in terms of what people say they want. But at the same time, one of those was about good access to care and healthcare, and that reflects in what you were saying, Ruba, about that sometimes there's confusion over what we do and what we don't do, and we are not responsible for healthcare. But that said, as in the case of the Western Gateway project and the replacement of the Broad Street Clinic, we work with our partners to deliver the need against the needs of our population. So we have worked with the Health Board to find a way of providing a replacement clinic at Broad Street. So the more that we can talk and explain, but also to listen, because we don't have a monopoly on ideas, and actually it is very likely that people who live in the Vale will have ideas about how we can deliver services more effectively and more appropriately to their needs. So I'm really, really pleased with this piece of work, with such a large sample of people, and hope it's the beginning of continued progress in this light. I'm delighted to second those recommendations, and I'm looking around and everybody's in agreement. So that's agreed. Thanks, Ruba. It's a super report. So let's have a look on here. I do not have any urgent items under agenda item 18. Neither do I have any part 2 items. So with that note, I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank everyone for their attendance and ask the Democratic Services Officer to confirm that the live stream and recording have been stopped, please.